An infamous crime lord hosts a meeting with his associates, proudly reminding them that they have dominated the temp agency business for over 15 years. His utter lack of humanity is obvious. He forces underlings to act as human chairs and uses another man's hand as a literal ashtray. Today is a major milestone for their illicit operation, so they decide to toast to their success. A man in glasses pours wine, passing it to a professional tester who must sip first, confirming it is poison-free before the boss drinks. The tester takes a drink and gives the all clear, declaring the drink perfectly safe. Satisfied, the kingpin pours his own glass and takes a swallow. Within seconds of that single sip, he collapses to the floor. The wine was lethally poisoned after all. While the others tackle the terrified tester, the real culprit is Hikru, the man who originally poured the wine. After shedding his disguise, Jiro heads home, but gets distracted by a beautiful blonde woman kissing a man inside a car. So captivated by the scene, Jiro accidentally walks straight into a wall. Later, relaxing at home with ice cream, his sister Akari asks how he managed to bypass the master poison tester. Jiro explains it was simple. He slowly built up the tester's immunity over time. He had spent 3 months secretly adding tiny, non-lethal doses of poison to the man's meals until his body could withstand a fatal amount. Akari remarks on the staggering amount of effort that required. Jiro simply agrees that it was exhausting. No one would ever suspect such extreme methods, which is exactly why they have thrived as hitmen for so long. Changing the subject, Akari brings up the topic of marriage, causing Jiro to nearly choke on his dessert. Jiro is convinced marriage is impossible for him, especially since he rarely encounters women in his line of work. He recalls how their grandmother, desperate for an heir to the Poison clan, once tried to trap him into an arranged marriage with a total stranger. He knows the pressure is on. If he doesn't marry, the family's legacy ends with him. Akari dryly notes that she cannot exactly imagine crowds of girls chasing after someone like him. Jiro receives a text from the Bugmaster and goes out to grab a meal with him. They chat and Jiro mentions his plan to live out his days as a bachelor. That is when the Bugmaster casually mentions he is getting married soon, to a sweet, quiet girl he recently met. Jiro is shocked. He always assumed his friend would stay single forever. The Bugmaster reassures Jiro that his wedding won't change their close friendship. As the Bugmaster leaves, Jiro admits that he always viewed marriage negatively, but hearing his friend's happiness has changed his mind. He begins to wonder if settling down might actually be a good thing. The next day, Jiro travels to a new job, listening to his client prattle on about the women working in his office. Jiro dismisses the talk, reminding the man to focus on the mission at hand. The man introduces Jiro to his next target, a cold-hearted marriage swindler named May. She has caused endless trouble and the client wants her gone. Jiro immediately accepts the assignment. He injects May with a serum, warning her that nerve paralysis will soon paralyze her entire body, starting from her extremities. He promises she will feel like she is being torn apart from the inside, but May simply begins flirting with him, unfazed. Jiro ignores her advances, assuming it is just a desperate attempt to survive. May admits she conned people, but claims it was only to pay for her sick younger brother's treatment. He is critically ill. She says she took any dangerous job she could find to scrape the money together. But it was never enough. As she coughs blood, she adds that if she has to die, having a handsome man like Jiro by her side is a comforting thought. She gazes into his eyes and asks for his name before the end. Flustered, Jiro quietly reveals it to her. Watching from afar, the client and his staff doubt Jiro's speed, but are reminded that he hails from the prestigious Jiro assassination dynasty, guaranteeing success. Failure is not an option for him. Jiro begins to question his own cold heart, but a call from Akari changes everything. She is returning home to produce an heir to the Jiro clan. Since she needs a partner, she plans to marry a member of a branch family. Jiro tries to stop her, but Akari reveals that if she refuses, their grandmother will strip away her freedom and force the marriage anyway. She chooses to face the situation on her own terms. Jiro asks about her girlfriend. Akari says she must end the relationship. Jaro begs her to wait. He returns to May and suddenly proposes marriage. He explains that he must be married to become the head of the clan. And since she has shown interest in him, he wants her. He offers to take care of her brother's medical bills as well. May smiles warmly at first, then grows cold, flatly rejecting his proposal. She explains that she wanted one last moment of fun before death, and now she can die in peace. Finally, she tells him that marriages work when people are actually right for each other. But a man who kills without a second thought will never be a partner to anyone. She advises him to be honest about his true feelings, warning that a union built solely for inheritance will fail. Jaro finally opens up. He admits he craves a quiet, loving life despite being trained to be a cold-blooded killer. He longs for someone who loves him for who he is. But he feels hopeless, having never lived a normal life or met any women. He was raised to never open his heart. May laughs, he just shared his soul with a stranger he just met. She assures him it isn't so hard. He just needs to meet people, and eventually he will find his match. Then she urges him to finish the job. Tears stream down her face, knowing her brother will be lost without her help. Suddenly, the client storms in, demanding Jaro stop the chatting and finish her off. Jaro stands his ground. He refuses to kill her, saying he needs her. He realizes her swindling skills could be useful for finding a wife, so he decides to hire her instead. He promises to protect her and her brother. In return, he wants her help finding a bride. May is stunned, no one has ever offered her such kindness. Suddenly, a bullet whizzes past her head. The client, disappointed, decides Jaro must die. He thinks killing the heir will propel his group to the top. Jaro slams them for ruining lives by blackmailing ordinary people. Since he only kills the wicked, he decides they are all fair game. Jaro injects himself with a secret serum. His eyes glow green and he dons a gas mask. The group fires blindly, but when the smoke clears, Jaro and May have vanished. They look up to see the duo on the ceiling, but it is already too late. Every attacker collapses to the ground, helpless, as Jaro's poison takes effect. May watches in awe, realizing Jaro wasn't just bragging. Jaro explains he used his 300 torments of hell poison. They won't die, but the agony will prevent them from ever working as thugs again. Jaro calls Akari, telling her she can stay with her girlfriend, as he will marry and become the head of the clan. Akari is thrilled. The handler tries to run. He crashes into a one-way mirror, trapped. Jaro throws a needle into his back, paralyzing him just like the rest. They leave the building, hailing a taxi. May still cannot move, so she asks Jaro to carry her. Jaro immediately panics, having never interacted with a woman outside of his professional work. May tells him to calm down, then nonchalantly reveals that he is actually a man. The revelation leaves Jaro completely stunned and speechless. Later at a hotel, Jaro confirms May's gender and demands to know why he cross-dresses. May explains that he wears women's clothing to deceive men, and dresses as a man when swindling women. He claims it is simply more entertaining to play both sides. May promises that after his training, Jaro will be capable of charming everyone, regardless of gender. May reveals he has already registered Jaro for a matchmaking event and insists he fill out his profile. The next day they attend the mixer and find the room packed with men but very few women. To balance things out, May disguises himself as a woman to attract the men, effectively reducing Jaro's competition. Jaro learns that first impressions are crucial, so May vows to unearth and polish his natural charisma. When Jaro approaches his first date, he blurts out that he earns millions of dollars annually. His date instantly loses interest and turns him away. May is unsurprised by the rejection. He explains that boasting about money only makes Jaro seem arrogant and unapproachable. May instructs Jaro to try smiling more. When Jaro attempts this with the next group, his smile comes across as forced and eerie, leading to more rejections. By the end of the day, Jaro is frustrated that his efforts yielded such poor results. Mei pulls out a dating app he registered Gyro for, informing him that he already has a date scheduled. During the date, Gyro struggles to eat, paralyzed by his training as a poison master, which prohibits consuming food he didn't prepare. By the time he finds the courage to take a bite, his date has already walked out. Defeated, they call it a day, but as Mei heads home, a jeep screeches up and kidnappers drag him inside. Gyro spots the struggle and pursues, but he cannot match the vehicle's speed. Inside the jeep, the driver demands to know what Mei did to his brother, the handler from before. Mei claims ignorance, but the man remains unconvinced. The kidnapper fires a lead pellet from his mouth into Mei's face, yet Mei still insists he knows nothing. As the man prepares for another shot, the driver notices Gyro standing in the road. They decide to ignore him and attempt to run him down. Just before impact, Gyro leaps over the car and strikes it with a thermal poison. The chemical reaction is powerful enough to snap the speeding car into two pieces. Gyro chases the wreckage and catches up. As Mei's half of the car begins to tip off a bridge, Gyro pulls him to safety, leaving the kidnappers to plunge into the river. Gyro returns Mei's phone, thanking him for the effort he put into the day. He acknowledges that he is terrible at dating, yet he still desperately wants Mei's continued help. Mei notices Gyro didn't get a single phone number, so he offers his own instead. Mei officially becomes Gyro's first real friend. As they walk home, Mei finds himself strangely drawn to Gyro, finally seeing his genuine hidden charm. The next day, Mei hands Gyro a flyer for the Avocado Oceanic Art Gallery on a cruise ship. Gyro is confused, but Mei insists he trust the process. Meeting at the ship's entrance, Gyro is struck by how beautiful Mei looks in his disguise. They enter the gallery, and Gyro is awestruck by the scenery. Mei explains this is a rehearsal for a real first date, with her playing his partner. She argues that Gyro's current demeanor would ruin any real chance with a woman. The mock date begins, and Mei deducts points every time Gyro acts stiff or socially awkward. Then, Gyro stops in front of an expensive DIY candy kit display. He suddenly speaks with natural passion and genuine enthusiasm, engaging Mei in a charming, effortless conversation. Mei awards him bonus points, feeling a flicker of real hope for his romantic future. Nearby, a man fidgets on the floor, ignoring the crowd. Mei reveals he is the celebrated painter, Mr. Shiratori. She explains that fans ignore Shiratori's odd behavior because they are captivated by his extraordinary talent. Gyro laments that he has no such talent. Mei disagrees, citing how he saved her from the handler's room. His ability to protect others is his unique charm. She tells him to ditch the apps and find women by doing good deeds. Gyro is skeptical, being an assassin by trade. Mei argues there is no reason he can't kill targets and save civilians simultaneously. That night, guards notice valuable art is missing and suspect the thief, Himekawa, is still on board. In reality, Himekawa has already escaped underwater to return the stolen goods to their rightful owners. She reaches the shore, but a whirlpool drags her team away, and a white-suited stranger attacks her. Meanwhile, at a buffet, Gyro asks Mei where he can find saving people jobs. Mei introduces him to Dark Nav, a site for vigilante-style missions. Gyro finds a mission to rescue Himekawa from bandits, demanding art as ransom. Himekawa is a Robin Hood figure who returns art stolen by cruel collectors. Her fan club is footing the bill for her rescue. Gyro is the only one who accepted the high-risk, low-pay contract. Mei sees an opportunity. With no competition, Gyro can easily play the hero. Gyro identifies himself as a poison master, terrifying the men who hired him. The kidnapper taunts Himekawa. Himekawa refuses to join him, stating she only steals to honor her promises to the innocent. Ushio, the kidnapper's brute, grabs her and douses her in water. Gyro and Mei infiltrate the mall. They run into armed guards, but Gyro dispatches them with a precise split kick. Mei hesitates, but Gyro insists he needs her help, boosting her confidence. The boss orders Ushio to leave the prisoner and handle the intruders. She suggests heroic deeds like rescuing hostages, guarding VIPs, and doing good to gain female attention. Gyro is stunned, As a trained assassin and poison master, he is accustomed to taking lives, not saving them. May counters that there is no rule forbidding a professional from doing good. This advice genuinely shifts Jiro's perspective. Later that night, guards discover a piece of valuable artwork has been stolen. They immediately pin the blame on Himekawa. The guards alert the ship's pilot. He scans the surrounding waters for any departing vessels. Finding none, they conclude that Himekawa must still be hiding on board. Unbeknownst to them, Himekawa is already deep underwater, traveling toward land with her shark Chomsky. Reaching the shore, she sees her teammates waving and feels relief at her successful escape. Suddenly, a whirlpool manifests, dragging her teammates under. Before she can react, a mysterious figure in a white suit descends toward her. Meanwhile, Jiro and May grab food at the buffet. Jiro remains fixated on the idea of being a hero. He asks May where he might find such humanitarian work. May introduces him to Dark Nav, a site listing specialized jobs like criminal capture and smuggling intervention. She is surprised he hasn't heard of it. Jiro explains he usually works solely through private brokers. Browsing the site, Jiro finds a rescue request targeting Himekawa. The report claims bandits captured her and are demanding the return of seized government-held art in exchange for her life. While public perception labels her a thief, the reality is far more noble. She steals back art that wealthy, corrupt collectors have taken from the defenseless. Her actions have earned her a loyal, secretive following. It was her own fan club that hired Jiro. May isn't surprised Jiro is the only one applying. Few would risk so much for such low pay. She realizes this lack of competition is actually a blessing, as it gives Jiro a chance to play the hero without interference. Jiro identifies himself as a poison master. The clients are visibly stunned to be in the presence of such a legendary figure. Meanwhile, the kidnapper taunts Himekawa, calling her the most beautiful woman he's ever seen and demanding she switch sides. Himekawa refuses, asserting that she only steals for causes she believes in. She is determined to return every piece of art he has stolen to its rightful owners. One painting belonged to an orphaned girl, and Himekawa swore she would reclaim it at any cost. Irritated, the kidnapper signals Ushio, who brutally grabs Himekawa by the throat and douses her with water. Jiro and May infiltrate the mall to begin their rescue. Rounding a corner, they encounter two armed guards. Jiro intervenes instantly, disabling both with a precise split kick. May considers sitting the rest out, but Jiro insists he needs her help. His trust provides the confidence she needs to proceed. Ushio continues to harass Himekawa until the boss orders him to deal with the intruders. Ushio leaves to confront them. Meanwhile, Ushio keeps pouring fluid over Himekawa. The boss orders him to stop and deal with the newly arrived intruders, so Ushio leaves to handle them. As they press deeper into the ship, Jiro nervously practices the pickup lines he hopes to use on Himekawa, only for them to run straight into a squad of guards. Blocking their path, the guards offer little resistance. Jiro dispatches them with casual ease, continuing his clumsy, flirtatious monologue to May even as he takes each man down. They board an elevator, descending toward the lower levels. Meanwhile, the boss levels a gun at Himekawa. Initially threatening her, he pivots, pointing the weapon at the priceless painting instead. He commands her to surrender, threatening to destroy the artwork if she resists. Recognizing the painting she vowed to recover for a young girl, Himekawa submits immediately. Defenseless, she agrees to follow his orders to keep the piece intact. Suddenly, an unknown force obliterates the boss's arms, sending him into a frantic, panicked spiral. Moments later, a spectral entity emerges from the wall, appearing to incinerate him from within. It is a mere illusion. A hallucination induced by the poison Jiro had secretly dosed him with earlier. Jiro steps forward calmly, introducing himself. He identifies himself as the master sent to liberate her. Himekawa is stunned that a master would come on his own to save her. She apologizes for lacking the funds to pay him, which flusters Jiro, who hadn't prepared a response for such a mundane obstacle. May enters, rushing to undo Himekawa's restraints. Suddenly, Ushio emerges from the shadows, grabbing Himekawa and holding her hostage, immobilizing her completely. Gyro reacts by injecting himself with an augmentation serum, pushing his physical limits far beyond human bounds. He charges, but Ushio blurs, disappearing and reappearing elsewhere, leaving Himekawa vulnerable in the commotion. Sensing danger, Gyro tosses Himekawa toward Mei to move her out of harm's way. Ushio retaliates with pressurized water fists. The impact is devastating, shattering the floor and sending both fighters tumbling to a lower level. Ushio lunges again, but pauses, uncharacteristically apologizing for failing to introduce herself properly before this duel. She hands him her business card. Acknowledging he is a poison master, she asks if they can resolve this conflict diplomatically. Ushio identifies as a water master. She warns that a full-scale battle between masters will cause collateral damage far exceeding Gyro's contract fee. She offers to pay him 10 times his original fee, provided he abandons Himekawa and the mission entirely. Mei watches from the sidelines, utterly bewildered by the sudden negotiation. Gyro's syringe rolls toward her. Noticing the residual liquid, she reaches for it, but Gyro screams for her not to touch the lethal substance. Ushio recognizes the threat, correctly identifying it as a highly volatile poison. She explains that masters are born with modified bloodlines, granting them unique abilities. For poison masters, exposure to fatal toxins actually triggers a temporary, massive strength boost. Gyro clarifies that this is only half the truth. It is a double-edged sword. The bloodline demands the master finish the target before their own organs fail. Suspecting she shares a similar genetic modification, Gyro wonders if her water control has similar costs. Ushio remains silent, evading his question. Instead, she repeats her demand for a peaceful resolution. When Gyro stands firm, the battle resumes. When Gyro refuses to join them, Ushio attacks. Initially, Ushio dominates, but Gyro coats her glove in thermopoison, triggering a sudden explosion. Taking advantage, Gyro knocks her back. She rises, shocked by his millimeter-level combat precision. Gyro declares his intent. He is fighting for Himekawa, believing their connection is fated. Ushio, convinced Gyro has gone soft, unleashes her Hell's Lashes water technique. Gyro dodges the high-pressure streams, but Mei is struck, causing Gyro immense concern. Seeing Mei injured, Himekawa offers to help, disregarding her own safety. They spot a poison syringe nearby. Meanwhile, Gyro is running low on resources, his needles and poisons nearly exhausted. Flashes of his childhood training with the Poison Clan flood his mind. He was taught that anyone discovering their secrets must be eliminated without mercy. Returning to the present, Himekawa slides the syringe toward him. Gyro pleads with her to run, but she refuses to be a damsel in distress. Ushio tries to pull Himekawa away with Hydra tentacles. Gyro grabs the syringe. Ushio yells at him to drop it, which he does. He lunges at her, and she realizes too late the syringe was already empty. Gyro has already ingested the dose and strikes her neck with a lethal-grade poison needle. Ushio drops instantly. Gyro catches Himekawa, panicking when he realizes he's in her no-touch zone. Ushio revives. Gyro explains her own technique to her, having mastered it in the clan library. He spares her life, warning her that he could kill her if he chose. Ushio mocks his mercy, but Gyro threatens them with his 1,000 torments toxin if they cross him again. Himekawa agrees to give them a ride home on her pet shark, Chomsky. Back at the rescue site, she returns the painting to its owner. The emotional reunion moves the fan club watching on camera. Gyro stands awkwardly until called forward for thanks. Himekawa admits she thought he was cold, but now sees his true heart. Gyro blushes in response. Mei thanks Gyro for funding her brother's treatment. She shares photos of her brother's recovery, showing him the impact of his kindness. As a result, she decides to step in and fight alongside him. Suddenly, Ushio grabs Himekawa with her Hydra tentacles and drags her away. She mocks Himekawa, calling her a fool for joining the battle. At that moment, Gyro rises, gripping the syringe tightly in his hand. Ushio recognizes the syringe immediately and orders him to drop it. Gyro simply lets the syringe fall to the ground. The moment it drops, he charges toward Ushio at incredible speed. As he sprints, she notices the dropped syringe is completely empty. She instantly realizes that Gyro has already injected the poison into himself. But by the time she figures it out, it's far too late. Gyro closes in, jabbing a poison needle straight into her neck. The poison takes effect instantly, causing Ushio to collapse right there. Gyro then catches Hamkawa, holding her safely in his arms. Suddenly, he realizes his hands are resting in an inappropriate spot. Panicking, he frantically looks up at Mei and begs for help. Shortly after, Ushio regains consciousness to find Gyro standing over her. Gyro calmly analyzes her water technique, noting he read about it extensively in his clan's library. Confused, Ushio demands to know why he spared her life when he easily could have killed her. Gyro explains his mission was simply to rescue Hamkawa, not to commit murder. He believes defeating her is a sufficient lesson to ensure she never interferes with him again. Gyro also decides to spare the life of the other kidnapper. He lets him leave with just a warning. This merciful choice annoys Ushio, and she calls Gyro soft. Gyro warns that anyone crossing him again will face his 1,000 torments toxin, proving he remains incredibly dangerous if pushed. Mei then asks Hamkawa if she's satisfied with this outcome. Hamkawa agrees, stating she has no intention of ever getting captured again anyway. She then generously offers Gyro and Mei a ride back. They panic in shock when they realize their ride home is on Chomsky, Hamkawa's giant pet shark. Later, Hamkawa visits Aija to return the precious painting of her mother. Aija and her father are overjoyed and relieved to recover it. Meanwhile, the Hamkawa fan club watches the touching reunion via camera and bursts into emotional tears. Gyro stands awkwardly in the corner, unsure of what his next move should be. Hamkawa calls him over, explaining that Aija wants to thank him personally. Gyro awkwardly steps forward, feeling unexpectedly emotional as Aija expresses her gratitude. Hamkawa also sincerely thanks Gyro for saving her life. She confesses that when she first heard he was a poison master, she expected him to be totally cold and heartless. But now she realizes he's completely different, making Gyro blush slightly. Mei speaks up, telling Gyro she never got to properly thank him for covering her brother's medical bills. She shows off recent photos of her brother, highlighting his successful recovery. She expresses deep gratitude for everything Gyro has done for her family. Mei points out that Gyro has positively affected more lives than he realizes. She urges him to accept the praise, and the overwhelming emotion drives Gyro to slip away to the restroom to compose himself. Before he can hide, the Hamkawa fan club intercepts him to settle his payment. Hamkawa confesses that they lack the funds to pay him his full fee. She offers to provide any other compensation in her power. Gyro is visibly flustered by the offer. Mei intervenes, suggesting the three of them celebrate together. That evening, Gyro and Hamkawa wait awkwardly for Mei to join them. Mei deliberately skips the dinner to force them together, hoping a spark will ignite in her absence. She texts Gyro that she cannot make it, leaving him to handle the night alone. Panic sets in as Gyro realizes he is stuck alone with Hamkawa for the night. Hamkawa takes him to a shark convention. It is clearly not Gyro's scene, but he watches as Hamkawa revels in the event. Later, they sit down for dinner. Mei watches them secretly from afar. She soon realizes Gyro has deduced that this was her setup all along. Mei remembers her own advice, always compliment a girl's attire. Instead, Gyro awkwardly remarks that Hamkawa's necklace looks like an old keepsake. The comment leaves both Mei and Hamkawa stunned into silence. Gyro tries several conversational gambits, but each attempt is more awkward than the last. Mei realizes the situation is spiraling into a total disaster. She decides she must intervene. Connecting her phone to a nearby monitor, she begins signaling Gyro with prompts. She urges him to ask Hamkawa about her childhood. The restaurant manager confronts Mei, but she talks her way out of trouble, keeping the mission alive. Himekawa notices Jiro barely touching his food and inquires about his appetite. Jiro explains he was raised as a poison master, meaning he cannot eat food he hasn't personally prepared. He reveals he has spent his entire life cooking for himself and eating in isolation. Himekawa empathizes, sharing her own story. She spent her entire childhood alone, lacking family and friends at the orphanage where she grew up. A dying, wealthy man eventually adopted her, not out of love, but out of fear of leaving his vast fortune and legacy without an heir. She inherited the Himekawa name and a colossal fortune. She could have lived a life of leisure without working. However, she discovered a stash of beautiful art pieces hidden in his mansion. Investigations revealed they had all been obtained through illegal means. She spent her fortune returning them to their owners, leaving her completely broke. Now she works 5 days a week just to make ends meet. Jiro remembers how rewarding it felt to be thanked earlier. He realizes she has been performing such selfless acts her whole life. He sincerely tells her that what she does is incredibly cool. Himekawa tears up. It is the first time anyone has ever complimented her in such a way. The mood deepens as Mei signals Jiro to move in, encouraging him to finally ask her to be his girlfriend. Jiro finds his nerve but asks her to be his friend instead. Both Himekawa and Mei are blindsided by the pivot. Himekawa laughs, admitting she truly thought he was going to ask her out. Jiro admits he wanted to, but they remain strangers for now. He confesses that while he made a good impression, he has a dark side he isn't proud of and doesn't want to conceal. He asks Himekawa to take the time to see who he really is. If she can accept his full self, he will then properly ask for her heart. He views this as the first step toward the future he desires. Mei watches the scene, left speechless by Jiro's maturity. Himekawa understands his perspective. She agrees that starting as friends is a good path, but she warns him that winning her heart will not be easy. They exchange numbers and Jiro walks her to her car. Before leaving, she suggests he cook lunch for them next time, since he can only eat his own food. As he stands there, Mei appears and assigns him a new job, protecting the only daughter of a powerful CEO. Jiro balks, feeling like it is cheating on Himekawa, but Mei clarifies that they are only friends, and this experience will only make him a better partner. She argues that meeting various types of women will give him the experience he needs to understand relationships. Jiro sees the wisdom in this and accepts the assignment. Jiro starts his new shift, preparing for his protection detail. His task is to guard the CEO's daughter Shori at a college party. He knows he must keep Shori safe and invisible, but he is nervous about attending his first college party. Shori turns out to be just as socially anxious as Jiro. She struggles to interact with the other guests. Many students deem her a weirdo, which only heightens the tension. The story flashes back to when Shori's uncle Mitsuhiko first introduced her to Jiro. Mitsuhiko wanted Jiro to protect Shori, who is starting university this spring. He stresses that Jiro must work quietly, ensuring no one suspects Shori is being guarded. He explains that Shuri's father built an empire but passed away suddenly, leaving the company to her. This inheritance has triggered deep family conflict. His sister, Fudi, believes the company should be hers and is doing everything to seize control. While the exact plans are unknown, disturbing rumors suggest she has hired professional assassins. Mitsuhiko won't risk Shori's safety and hired the top poison master for the job. Jiro is the perfect fit. Shortly after, Mei provides Jiro with a fake student ID. He will now operate under the name Ashima, a third-year student. Jiro adopts the persona with ease. Shori timidly asks to experience a college drinking party like a normal student. Jiro refuses, calling it too dangerous. Shori flashes him a pair of innocent puppy dog eyes. Jiro immediately buckles, agreeing to let her go. At the party, introductions begin. Shori stands up, introducing herself in a stiff, awkward fashion. Instead of helping, it just confirms everyone's suspicion that she is strange. Next is Jiro's turn. He sees a chance to prove a poison master can be the life of the party, desperate to make an impact. He introduces himself loudly and tries to impress everyone by chugging 8 beers at once. Mei watches from afar, sensing disaster. After downing the beer, Jiro performs a polymer trick, regurgitating the liquid as a snake. He expects applause for the performance. Instead, the room is filled with genuine disgust and unease. One student notices someone hasn't introduced himself. A quiet blonde in the corner stands. He introduces himself as Naruko, nothing more. Pressed for his major, he says it doesn't matter. Jiro attempts to impress the crowd by chugging 8 beers at once. Mei watches from afar, sensing impending disaster. He then regurgitates the liquid, shaping it into a snake using an absorbent polymer trick. He expects applause, but the audience is visibly repulsed. The room falls into an awkward, disgusted silence. A student notices one person hasn't introduced himself. A mysterious blonde man rises from the corner. He calmly introduces himself as Naruko, refusing to elaborate further. A student asks about his major and year, but Naruko simply dismisses the questions, claiming none of it matters. He claims the only thing that truly matters is that they met in this very moment. With that, he casually sits back down. The surrounding girls are instantly smitten, flocking toward him to demand his number and vie for his attention. Seeing this, Jiro realizes there are levels to this game. Once the party concludes, they head home. Reflecting on how disastrous the night was for both of them, Jiro asks Shori why she forced herself to attend. He acknowledges her role as a future CEO and assumes she wanted to practice her communication skills. But he remains curious about her real motive. Shori explains that the company was not the reason at all. She reveals that just before his death, her father urged her to stop being timid and to live fully because life is meant to be enjoyed. She tells Jiro and Mei that she understands that taking that first step is all she needs for people to like her. Even so, she finds it impossible to stop worrying and hesitating. Shori admits she never asked her father why he selected her to inherit his legacy. Driven by this, she wants to become stronger and reach a point where she can laugh at her fears rather than being enslaved by them. Jiro offers a blunt reality check, reminding her that someone is still actively trying to kill her. Despite the danger, he vows that she is free to do as she pleases, because no matter how perilous it gets, he will protect her. His words cause Shori to blush deeply. From the shadows, Naruko watches them while reporting back to Futi. It is confirmed that he is the assassin Futi hired to eliminate Shori. The next day, as Naruko receives a massage, Futi scolds him for taking so long to dispose of Shori. Her frustration with the incomplete task is palpable as she continues to nag him. Annoyed by her incessant complaining, Naruko uses a special technique to disrupt her thought process. Once she is calm again, he coolly tells her that he will handle everything himself. That afternoon, Mei wonders why Jiro is bothering to study since he isn't even a real student. Jiro replies that he finds the experience entertaining because school life is entirely foreign to him. Outside, Naruko meditates with intense, singular focus. He activates a sound technique, generating high-frequency resonances. The waves pulse outward, subjecting the entire classroom to immense gravitational pressure. Students are forced to slam their heads onto their desks under the weight. Simultaneously, part of the ceiling collapses, plummeting toward Shori. Jiro instantly injects himself with an enhancement poison, supercharging his body. With that boost, he lunges forward, saving Shori mere moments before the debris strikes. Watching from outside, Naruko is genuinely surprised that Jiro could shield Shori under such dire circumstances. He recalls the substance Jiro injected moments earlier to spike his speed and strength. Naruko concludes that only a highly proficient combatant could execute such a feat. He determines that the only person capable of this must be a poison master. Jiro examines the wreckage, suspecting the attack was the work of a sound master. Jiro pulls Shori aside to tell her that the incident was a targeted assassination attempt. Mei worries about safety and debates cancelling their upcoming camping trip. Jiro believes the final decision rests with Mitsuhiko. Jiro fully expects Mitsuhiko to forbid the trip after such an attack. To his shock, Mitsuhiko agrees to let her go. He claims he doesn't want to deprive her of a trip she has anticipated for so long. What they don't realize is that Mitsuhiko is currently under Naruko's hypnotic influence. Everyone boards the bus to depart. During the ride, Jiro realizes that if he wants to stop the assassin, he must stop reacting and confront him head-on. They reach the camping site upon arrival. Jiro immediately attempts to dazzle the girls by showcasing his cooking expertise, drawing plenty of attention. Meanwhile, Shori struggles to socialize. Seeking a way to draw attention, she hatches a plan. She decides to dress up and perform some magic tricks for the group. The performance is a hit, and the students finally take an interest in her. Jiro praises her for her poise during the magic show. So she tries to think of a way to shift the spotlight onto herself. That's when she decides to dress up and entertain the group with a fun magic performance. Her clever trick wows the crowd, and the surrounding students happily turn all their attention toward her. By the end of the day, Jiro praises Shori for successfully pulling off the magic routine. Shori shyly admits it was just a small party trick she learned from her father's corporate world. Suddenly, one of the students interrupts, asking if anyone has ever heard the legend of the Chladni curse. Seeing the blank stares from the group, he eagerly begins explaining the dark lore. He explains that this area was once a village, where locals offered sacrifices to a local deity until World War II. According to legend, whenever crops failed, the villagers would lock the youngest child inside a nearby shrine as a sacrifice to the gods. He adds that these grim traditions were completely abandoned after the war. However, for unknown reasons, a sudden series of natural disasters began striking the village. Even though nearly 1,000 people lived there, it wasn't long before every last villager was completely wiped out. The group grows tense, but the student quickly admits he made the entire scary story up on the spot, allowing everyone to sigh in relief. Later, the girls decide to play a game while wondering about Naruko's whereabouts, having not seen him for a while. In reality, Naruko is moving swiftly and silently deep through the surrounding forest. He's already finished placing several deadly traps meant specifically for Shori. From his expression alone, it's clear he's fully confident in his eventual victory. Meanwhile, the group decides to keep the fun going by visiting a spooky local shrine. For extra fun, they set up a photo stand along the path to capture their creepy memories. Upon arriving, they divide into smaller groups. Jiro ends up partnered with Shori for the walk. Jiro suddenly recalls Mei's earlier advice. She suggested that frightening situations can make a girl mistake her racing heartbeat for romantic attraction. Jiro understood the psychology behind it, but felt uneasy about Mei's twisted enthusiasm for the plan. As they walk, Shori suddenly apologizes to Jiro for dragging him out to the party. She admits his bodyguard job would have been much easier if she had simply stayed home instead. Jiro casually tells her not to worry about it. He explains that an isolated place like this actually limits enemy attack angles, making it somewhat safer. Then he asks her for a single promise. He tells her to do her best to just enjoy herself. Moments like this are rare, and it would be a complete waste to let fear ruin the fun. Touched by his comforting words despite the assassination threat, Shori pulls out a selfie stick to capture a quick picture with him. After snapping the photo, she checks the screen and freezes in absolute terror. In the picture, Jiro's face has distorted into a terrifying spirit. Highly confused, she turns around and realizes Jiro has completely vanished from her side. Panic quickly sets in, and she runs off frantically searching for him. Moments later, she spots his figure standing quietly near a log. But as he turns around, his body physically mutates into a dark, shadowy monster. The creature lunges at her, but she manages to flee and barricades herself inside a nearby wooden building. Somehow, the spirit teleports right in front of her again, blocking all exits as it slowly marches toward her step by step. Shori backs away, trembling in pure, unadulterated fear. Just as it reaches her, a sudden light hits its face, revealing the monster to be her own father. Her mind breaks in confusion, knowing perfectly well that her father is dead and buried. The utter shock causes her legs to give out completely. She collapses to the floor. Her father then calmly sits down right across from her, casually offering her a drink as if nothing is wrong. Deeply shaken, Shori stammers, asking how they are possibly conversing right now. Her father replies that her soul is currently hovering in limbo between life and death. She exists in this twisted state, specifically to serve as a sacrifice for Chladni. Hearing this, Shori decides to finally ask a heavy question she's carried for years. She asks him directly why he ever chose her to inherit the massive company. However, right before he can finally provide her with an answer, his face grotesquely splits wide open, revealing another demonic face hiding underneath. This horrific new face speaks in a chilling voice, claiming he deeply regrets ever making her his successor. Those words hit Shori hard, instantly shattering her heart. Before she can even process the shock, a red mark spreads across her eyes, a sign that her mind is being brainwashed and her will is crumbling. The figure continues to berate her, branding her a failure who will never satisfy his high expectations, never living up to them. He gestures toward a nearby rope, cruelly suggesting she end her miserable life to escape her failures. Manipulated by his dark influence, Shori sinks into a state of total, dangerous despair. It becomes clear that the father is a complete illusion, the same shape-shifting spirit as before, using his image to torment her. Just before she gives up, Shori has a sudden flashback to a moment where she brought joy to others. The memory fills her with raw emotion, and she shouts that she wants to see people smile again. Spurred by this surge of hope, she sprints to a set of nearby doors and jumps blindly over the cliff edge. Midair, the reality of her impulsive decision hits her as she plummets toward the ground. While falling, she thinks of the people who have protected and supported her. She realizes that dying here would be a betrayal to them all, and she desperately fights to survive. She manages to yank her umbrella from her pack. It briefly cushions her fall, offering a glimmer of hope, but the frame snaps almost immediately. The umbrella disintegrates, leaving her to fall once again, completely defenseless. Just before she hits the ground, Gyro appears out of nowhere. He lays down a layer of water-absorbent polymer, diving in to catch her just as they land safely on the cushioned surface. Shori looks up at Gyro, flooded with genuine relief that he arrived just in time. Gyro quickly pieces together the assassin's strategy. Killing Shori outright would make the assassin a primary suspect. Instead, they are carefully staging an elaborate accident or a suicide to avoid any direct implication. Moments later, Naruko appears wearing a calm, triumphant smirk. Gyro compliments the ingenuity of Naruko's plan, admitting it worked almost perfectly. He notes that after the photo at the stand, Naruko used a sonic shockwave to scramble his orientation and separate him from Shori, making her an easy target. Gyro warns Shori that they have to move, as fighting Naruko here is too dangerous. Shori confesses she cannot run, her knees have buckled from the sheer terror of the experience. Having no other choice, she clings to Gyro for support, which leaves him visibly blushing at their closeness. Gyro injects an enhancement serum to spike his speed, and they bolt into the dense forest. Naruko remains totally unfazed by their escape. He casually sets up a massage chair, relaxing as if he has all the time in the world. As Gyro and Shori sprint, Naruko uses a Mind Whisper ability to project psychic interference and disrupt their concentration from afar. Gyro immediately spots the tactic, handing Shori earplugs to shut out the influence. Shori reveals she has an even better solution for the noise. She produces a pair of stylish, high-quality noise-cancelling headphones. She puts one pair on herself and hands the second to Gyro, cutting them off from the psychic noise. Naruko warns them that silence is their biggest mistake. He explains that when sound is suppressed, it builds pressure until it can pierce through skin like a blade. A sonic attack streaks toward Gyro, who barely evades it with a sharp, lightning-fast maneuver, surprising Naruko. Still, Naruko remains confident. Gyro was never his primary target anyway. Suddenly, Shori's eyes flare with that red mark again. Her consciousness has been hijacked. Without warning, she shoves Gyro away and bolts deeper into the woods alone. She stops abruptly when a new hallucination manifests before her. It is her uncle, Mitsuhiko, glaring at her with icy disdain. He cruelly tells her that she is nothing but a worthless burden, an obstacle to his plans. His words cut deep, shattering her confidence. In truth, Naruko is speaking through the projection, weaponizing her deepest insecurities. As she breaks down, Gyro appears, landing a powerful kick to the fake Mitsuhiko's face, causing the illusion to dissipate instantly. He immediately uses a toxin to render Shori unconscious, knowing her current mental state is too fragile. Naruko watches from the shadows, unfazed. He concedes that a poison master would obviously be capable of piercing through his complex mental illusions. Gyro shouts into the trees, demonstrating he has cracked the code of the assassin's methods. He knows Naruko's technique, harvests the victim's most traumatic memories, and turns them into a lethal weapon. He calls Shori's strength underrated, vowing she will survive this. Meanwhile, Mei is navigating the terrain, tracking their location. Vaulting over a fence, she discovers them, caught off guard by the intimate way Shori is clinging to Gyro. Gyro abruptly orders Mei to take Shori to safety immediately. He knows that after 2 failed attempts, Naruko is already cooking up a new, more lethal strategy. Gyro prepares to face Naruko alone. Naruko thinks exactly as Gyro predicted. He will execute Gyro first, then hunt Shori down later, savoring the thrill of the chase. Naruko realizes Gyro's poison is useless at range. He is genuinely curious how Gyro plans to overcome this advantage while remaining at a safe distance. Gyro bolts into the woods, slicing through tripwires with a corrosive poison spray. But to his shock, the strings are unaffected, rendering the poison ineffective. Naruko explains they vibrate at ultrasonic speeds, making them impossible for liquids to affect. Naruko summons a giant spirit golem, which surges forward to crush Gyro. Gyro dances around the golem's lethal blows. Suddenly, Naruko pauses in confusion. His golem has completely stalled. He flees his relaxation spot, sprinting toward the source of the interference. He never felt a single wire being cut. Arriving, he sees the truth. The golem is pinned by massive, magically accelerated tree vines and branches. Gyro used a plant growth serum, forcing the nature to reclaim the space. Naruko's strings are useless, the rapid growth is throwing off his rhythm. He cannot maintain the precise control needed for his technique. Still, Naruko remains remarkably calm. He believes fear is a dormant seed waiting to be watered in every soul. He just needs to make that fear manifest. The camping group spots the golem in the distance and erupts into panicked hysteria. Naruko harvests their collective fear to enforce the curse of Chladni. The tour leader demands a sacrifice to appease the deity. They settle on the youngest member, Shori. Shori and Mei flee for their lives. The mob follows, screaming that sacrifice is the only way to survive. Naruko carves a violin out of wood, ready to play. Seeing this, Gyro braces himself. The master bloodline is coming. But it was a bluff. Naruko hurls the instrument and bolts. He uses it to brainwash them, forcing them to genuinely believe in Chladni's terrible curse. The tour leader suddenly shouts that they must offer a child sacrifice to appease the angry god, but since there are no actual children present, they decide the youngest member of the group will have to suffer instead. The brainwashed students pull out their IDs, frantically comparing birth dates one by one. It quickly becomes obvious that Shori is the youngest person among them. Once the mob realizes this, Shori and Mei instantly turn around and run for their lives. Under Naruko's dark control, the remaining students scream for them to come right back, insisting that killing Shori is the absolute only way to appease Chladni. Meanwhile, deep inside the forest, Naruko calmly carves wood and uses his deadly strings to assemble a makeshift violin. Spotting this, Gyro braces himself, sensing that Naruko is about to unleash his modified bloodline technique. However, Naruko is just bluffing. He throws the fake violin directly at Gyro's head and immediately sprints away at top speed. Naruko needs to locate one final item before he can effectively fight Gyro again. Once he secures it, he is absolutely certain victory will be his. Gyro pursues Naruko as the assassin glides effortlessly across the taut strings of his violin as if they were solid pathways. While in pursuit, Naruko mocks Gyro, arguing that even if Shuri escapes and becomes CEO, her life will only worsen, as selfish relatives and opportunists will inevitably surround her, tearing her down for their own profit. He acknowledges that Shuri possesses genuine potential, but insists that realizing it will require exhausting, non-stop labor. Regardless, Naruko maintains that in a world dominated by the strong, the currently weak simply cannot survive. This ruthless mindset triggers memories of his dojo days, where he trained alongside a brother who worked tirelessly, yet Naruko easily crushed him due to his own natural-born genius. His raw talent always eclipsed his brother's hard work. Gyro counters that while Shuri began as weak, she is actively conquering her fears, marking the essential first step toward true future strength. Naruko ignores the speech. He has finally located what he needed, a pit of natural healing sap secreted by the forest trees. These concentrated sap pockets provide the perfect restorative environment for his recovery. His sonic techniques aren't built for brawling, so to effectively trap enemies, he must maintain peak physical conditioning. Naruko leaps into the pit and begins inhaling the concentrated fumes, eager to absorb their restorative properties. He prepares his modified bloodline technique for the final phase of the duel, only to realize something is terribly wrong. The vapors weren't healing sap at all. It was poison gas, expertly masked to mimic the forest scent. Gyro had anticipated this need and rigged the pit as a trap long in advance. Naruko desperately tries to purge the toxins. He attempts to forcefully expel the gas, but the damage is already done. Gyro swoops in, using a polymer-coated hand to deliver a brutal blow to Naruko's gut. The impact renders Naruko instantly unconscious. As he fades, Naruko realizes he has lost. Yet he still smirks, convinced that Shuri's fate is sealed regardless of the outcome of this fight. The brainwashed tour group continues their frantic, futile search for Shuri. With the search yielding nothing, they decide to give up on finding her. They conclude that they will simply sacrifice the next youngest person they find instead. Shuri and Mei remain hidden deep in the woods, terrified. Mei urges them to flee the forest, but Shuri refuses. She knows that escaping only sentences another innocent person to take her place as a sacrifice. She looks Mei in the eye, determined she has a plan. The cultists prepare to sacrifice an innocent tourist. Shuri strides onto the scene in a makeshift witch outfit, seizing their attention. She demonstrates a fire trick, claiming she can exorcise the deity and end their madness. It was all a ruse by Shuri and Mei. The group wavers until a skeptic shouts that Shuri is lying to save her own skin. The mob turns hostile, demanding she prove her powers immediately. Shuri is paralyzed by fear, but Mei's subtle signal gives her the resolve to continue. Shuri performs her flame-based party tricks, locking the group's focus entirely on her. On cue, Gyro leaps from the air, releasing his poison flame gas onto the golem effigy. The construct incinerates instantly, and the sudden destruction breaks the hysteria spell, snapping the group out of their trance. Shuri calmly announces the deity is defeated. She suggests they gather for a peaceful campfire. Naruko, still grounded, processes his defeat. But then Mei quietly slips in behind her, signaling with her eyes for Shuri not to worry. Shuri executes their secret plan, using her fire-based party trick to dazzle the crowd and completely monopolize their attention. Right on cue, Mei signals Gyro to blast his toxic flame gas straight onto the child golem. Gyro leaps into the sky without hesitation, unleashing a fiery attack that burns the golem to pure ash. The golem's destruction shatters the mass hysteria spell, instantly freeing the entire student group from mind control. Afterward, Shuri calmly informs the bewildered crowd that Lord Chladni has been completely vanquished. She happily suggests that everyone sit down, relax together and build a nice campfire, Meanwhile, Naruko lies on the ground, slowly realizing Jaro has completely defeated him. Jaro corrects him, explaining that Shiori actually defeated him. She is already overcoming her weakness and growing far beyond it. Naruko always believed weak losers should be killed instantly. Because of this, he is genuinely shocked when Jaro simply turns his back and walks away without finishing him off. Before leaving, Jaro calmly explains that murder isn't part of his job description. It simply isn't required of him. He suggests Naruko open up to someone about his trauma with weakness, adding there is far more to life than being trapped in that toxic mindset. Jaro finally regroups with the girls. They are visibly relieved and overjoyed to see him return safely without any serious injuries. The following morning, the remaining students wake up confused, suffering from massive headaches. They claim to have strange dreams about Lord Chladni and Shiori, controlling fire like a witch. Shiori has no desire to explain everything, so she deflects the topic and calmly announces that breakfast will be ready soon. Looking closely, one can see her social skills have vastly improved since she arrived. She now speaks much more naturally and confidently with the people around her. Soon, it's time to depart. Mitsuhiko makes a dramatic, stylish entrance, and Jaro's group is quickly transporting out of the area by helicopters. While seated inside, Shiori thanks Jaro for everything he has done and gently tries to pet him. This catches Jaro completely off guard, making him jolt backward in total surprise. Shiori quickly explains that this is just a little habit. She does it whenever she praises someone she deeply respects. Surprisingly, Jaro is actually fine with that kind of affectionate behavior. He lets her continue patting his head, while Mei quietly records the entire moment without interrupting. Meanwhile, Fudy completely loses her mind after hearing that Naruko failed to eliminate Shiori. She hires another hitman to finish the job, but Jaro arrives perfectly on time and effortlessly takes the assassin out. Fudy immediately panics. She assumes Shiori brought the Poison Master along to take brutal revenge against her. Instead of attacking, Shiori calmly bows before Fudy, begging to be trained in the family business and learn how everything truly works. Fudy is initially hesitant, unsure of how to respond to this highly unexpected request. But then she remembers the dying wish of Shiori's father, to properly train his daughter if she ever showed genuine potential and determination. The fire in Shiori's eyes matches his description perfectly, so Fudy finally agrees to train her. Shiori is thrilled by the decision, but when she turns to look for Jaro and Mei, they have already vanished without a goodbye. Jaro is then seen carrying Mei on his back, performing flashy, unnecessary parkour moves across the city rooftops. Mei asks why he left so suddenly without getting Shiori's number. Jaro explains that from their time together, he sees she has a long journey ahead and isn't ready for marriage or a serious commitment. Hearing this makes Mei realize just how responsible and mature Jaro actually is at reading both people and complex situations. Shortly after, they land on the ground and prepare to cross the street. Suddenly, Shiori rides up on a bicycle, braking right in front of them. Not ready to say goodbye, she asks to share one last dinner with them before they finally part ways. They both agree, and later that evening, the three share drinks in a comfortable, relaxed setting. Mei initially assumed this date would be the breakthrough Jaro needed to finally spark a romantic connection with Shiori. However, their mutual awkwardness is so severe that they can barely string a coherent sentence together. Mei realizes that if she doesn't intervene, their budding connection will likely wither away into nothingness. Just as Mei prepares to step in, Jaro finds his voice, announcing he has a party trick to share. Expecting another disastrously embarrassing failure, Mei is stunned when Jaro executes a beautiful, visually mesmerizing trick, conjuring delicate flowers that drift down from the ceiling. Shiori is genuinely enchanted, recognizing the flowers as her absolute favorites. Shiori responds by sharing a trick of her own. The barrier between them dissolves, and they begin bonding with a natural ease they have never achieved before. By the time Mei finally succumbs to exhaustion and falls asleep, Jaro and Shiori are still deep in conversation. Just as Shiori prepares to confess her feelings, Mitsuhiko arrives with a horse-drawn carriage, abruptly ending the evening and whisking her away home. The interruption leaves the romantic moment unfinished. Before the carriage departs, Shori manages to ask Gyro to add her as a friend. As she rides away, she is overwhelmed with nervous, giddy excitement at finally securing his contact information. Gyro is left pondering the nature of their relationship. Is this genuine interest or just simple friendliness? May can see right through him, simply advising him to nurture their friendship without overanalyzing every interaction. May reminds him of their upcoming operation on Sunday, but Gyro begs off, citing a commitment to attend a friend's wedding. The groom is his old friend, the bugmaster Tashiki. It is essential that Gyro attends to honor their long-standing bond on such a pivotal day. May takes one look at Tashiki's intimidating photo and immediately tries to bow out, finding him genuinely terrifying. Gyro forces the issue by releasing one of Tashiki's butterflies toward her. The insect delivers a formal wedding invitation directly to her, leaving May utterly speechless. Caught off guard, she reluctantly decides to attend. Gyro admits he lacks appropriate attire for such a high-end event, forcing him to rely on May's expertise to get him properly prepared. May agrees to help him shop. She reminds him that weddings are prime social hunting grounds, offering a perfect, low-pressure environment for him to meet women. A few days later, they arrive at a luxurious wedding venue, immediately struck by the opulence, but before they can explore, a mysterious assailant launches needles at Gyro's face. The assault is rapid, and Gyro hits the deck, making it appear as though he has been mortally wounded. May is horrified, momentarily fearing Gyro has been killed in the surprise strike. Gyro pops back up casually as if nothing happened, and introduces the needle-wielding attacker as Tsunagi, the Needle Master. Tsunagi's children run over, begging to be taken to Disneyland. Tsunagi softens, revealing a caring, fatherly side that surprises Gyro and May given his lethal profession. Tsunagi correctly guesses May is Gyro's marriage advisor, leaving her baffled by his sharp intuition. The ceremony begins, with Tashiki making a grand entrance while carrying his bride, Anna, in his arms. As the priest begins the formalities, Gyro struggles to process the reality that the ruthless Tashiki is actually a devoted groom. The sight triggers a flashback to his first meeting with Tashiki years ago. Gyro had just finished a hit and crossed paths with the older man. He braced for a confrontation, but Tashiki simply invited him for a drink. Watching this moment makes Gyro reflect on the very first time he met Toshiki years ago. Back then, a younger Gyro had just finished an assassination job. On his way back, he unexpectedly bumped into Toshiki. At first, Gyro assumed Toshiki wanted a fight. However, Toshiki quickly clarified he was just there to sit down and share a drink with him. Knowing that Gyro was still underage at the time, Toshiki skipped the alcohol. Instead, he casually offered him apple juice. May snaps Gyro out of his flashback, telling him to focus. The ceremony is explaining how Toshiki first met Anna. Apparently, Anna nearly fell off a cliff while rock climbing. Luckily, Toshiki was nearby and managed to save her before she plummeted to her death. Hearing this dramatic story, Gyro isn't surprised. He always knew Toshiki was the kind of person to heroically save someone's life like that. The ceremony continues flawlessly. Watching it unfold, Gyro quietly asks May if he'll ever manage to pull off a perfect, beautiful marriage like this someday. May confidently assures him that he will absolutely make it happen, especially since he has her supporting him. Shortly after, the wedding ceremony officially concludes, and the guests cheerfully begin the joyous celebrations together. Unbeknownst to them, a group of villains is secretly watching the wedding from afar, preparing a deadly ambush. Gyro is the only person who senses something is deeply wrong the moment he spots danger. He leaps from his chair and sprints out, carrying one of Toshiki's spiders with him, utterly shocking May. Meanwhile, the attackers prepare to strike Toshiki and Anna. However, their leader fails to notice his men being silently taken down, one by one without a sound. By the time the leader finally realizes something is wrong, it's far too late. Gyro stands directly behind him, a massive spider web completely spread out and ready. However, the leader doesn't panic at all. Instead, he gets slightly excited and instantly fires multiple explosive cannons aimed straight at Gyro. The resulting explosion is brutally powerful, instantly filling the entire area with heavy smoke and debris. Given the immense intensity of the blast, the leader naturally assumes Gyro was killed instantly. Viewing the destruction makes him reflect on how he even ended up living this violent life. The man's name is Yamada, and he used to be entirely broke. He was a middle-aged man with nothing left to live for. After living a very lavish lifestyle in his youth, he ended up buried deep in massive debt. When the time finally came to repay his loans, he had absolutely no money left. As a result, a man known as the Puppet Master took his body as payment instead. Yamada underwent intense genetic modification. Multiple bombs were implanted throughout his body, transforming him into a living weapon and forcing him to work as a deadly hitman. After the surgery, the Puppet Master arrived and personally informed Yamada about the explosives rigged throughout his body. He explained that Yamada could detonate these bombs anytime simply by clicking his back tooth, a suicidal technique known as the explosion roulette. If Yamada ever faced an unbeatable enemy and was about to die, he could instantly trigger the deadly explosion and drag his opponent down to hell with him. Possessing this dark failsafe actually reignited a twisted sense of purpose and excitement within Yamada. Empowered by this new mindset, he ran outside and literally started assaulting random guys on the street. However, everything changed the fateful day he messed with Toshiki. Toshiki completely overpowered him, delivering a beating so severe that Yamada ended up losing his limbs in the brutal process. At that moment, Yamada was absolutely certain Toshiki would finally finish him off. But instead, Toshiki simply leaned forward and embraced him in a gentle hug. While being held, Yamada figured it was the perfect chance to activate Explosion Roulette and take Toshiki down with him. But right before he could click his tooth, a small bug flew out of his mouth. Toshiki calmly explained he had already disarmed the internal trigger mechanism, making it physically impossible to activate the bombs. After dropping that bombshell, Toshiki simply turned around and walked away without killing him. From that day on, Yamada harbored a deep hatred for Toshiki. He felt Toshiki stole the only thing giving his life meaning, the ability to go out in a fiery blast. Returning to the present, Yamada confidently walks away from the scene, entirely convinced Gyro perished in the massive explosion. However, as the dense smoke slowly clears, Gyro steps forward from a powerful protective barrier he created to shield himself from the blast. This completely shocks Yamada, realizing Gyro effortlessly survived one of his absolute best techniques. Their intense battle continues for quite a while. During the chaotic fight, Yamada actually appears to physically overpower Gyro for a short time. Observing the struggle, Yamada urges Gyro to unleash his modified bloodline if he has any hope of surviving. Gyro calmly declines, refusing to waste that level of power on someone like him. Back at the wedding reception, May is currently delivering a toast on Gyro's behalf to the assembled guests. Since Gyro vanished so abruptly, he never got to share what he actually intended to say. May is forced to improvise, fabricating a speech while pretending to read from a non-existent letter. To everyone's surprise, the speech turns out incredibly heartfelt, visibly touching Toshiki. The sentiment prompts Toshiki to reflect on his first encounter with Gyro in that dark alley years ago. Meanwhile, outside the venue, the battle continues to escalate. Gyro has adapted to Yamada's rhythm, expertly utilizing the spider webs provided by Toshiki's companions to control the flow of combat. He ensnares Yamada in the webbing, spinning him violently before flinging him far away. Gyro commands him to yield, insisting he refuses to stain this wedding celebration with any more bloodshed. As Yamada tumbles through the air, the puppet master speaks to him telepathically. He confirms that all safety limiters are off, granting Yamada the explosive power necessary to vaporize Toshiki and the entire wedding party. Yamada ignores Gyro, fixating entirely on the wedding venue as his new target. Just as he prepares to strike, he spots Toshiki laughing joyfully with Anna and their guests. The sight triggers a memory of the day Toshiki hugged him, despite them being sworn enemies. The memory shatters his resolve. Instead of attacking, Yamada soars into the sky, detonating himself far from the crowd. As the smoke clears, the dark clouds dissipate, replaced by a radiant sunset. At the reception, Tashiki thanks Mei for the beautiful speech delivered in Jiro's name. Mei secretly feels Tashiki is too generous toward Jiro, given the years of unwavering support he has provided him. Tashiki explains that the Jiro family stands among the 5 highest-ranking lineages in the master hierarchy. Smaller clans like the Bug and Needle Masters are essentially branch families, ranking far beneath the elite dynasties. Tashiki recounts his father's warnings about the top families, how they maintain their authority through ruthless manipulation and cold-blooded acts. He was always cautioned never to assume these elite members shared his own sense of honor. When he first met Jiro, he braced for the typical arrogance associated with such high status. Instead, he found a boy defined by calm, focused composure. Unlike other poison masters obsessed with vanity and displays of power, Jiro carried himself with a quiet humility. This genuine character is why Tashiki holds Jiro in such high regard. Tsunagi approaches. He and Tashiki bow to Mei, asking her to please help Jiro find a worthy bride. Mei laughs, promising she will do everything in her power to succeed. Jiro finally returns, shocked to see how quickly Mei has charmed all his colleagues. As the ceremony ends, everyone gathers to bid Tashiki and Anna a proper farewell. Tashiki unfurls his massive butterfly wings, taking flight with Anna as the guests cheer their departure. Elsewhere, a new assassin with dual-toned hair completes his latest contract. His partner congratulates him and relays the next file. Jiro has been marked for death. That concludes episode